Hello, it's the Women's Eye Podcast. My name is Alenka Vrecek, and I will be your guest host today. I had a pleasure to be a guest on TWE talking with Stacey Galandi about my book, She Rides Chasing Dreams Across California and Mexico. I guess I'm a pretty adventurous person myself, like our guest will be today, as I rode 2,500 miles solo on my bike ride across California mountains and across Mexico's Baja Peninsula. And today we're going to talk about facing fears and finding courage to create your own adventure. In the words of Amelia Earhart, the most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is a mere tenacity. Thanks for joining me here. And you will meet a passionate woman, as we are all passionate women who are creating change. Today's fearless female guest is Jenn Baljko, all the way from Spain. Tell us where you are, Jenn. Hi.
Hi, I'm in Vilafranca del Penedès, about an hour outside of Barcelona.
Oh, what's the weather like over there?
It's nice. It's a beautiful fall, actually. We're we're doing quite well weather-wise now. And we broke a drought. Like we're out of drought. So
There you go. That's awesome. But first, this is brought to you by Casco Financial Group in Phoenix. Casco president Catherine Scrivano started her business to help people like you create the financial strength to achieve your dreams. Today, we'd welcome Jenn Baljko, an award winning journalist, mindful writing mentor and editor, creativity kindler, author, and speaker. All that is very impressive, Jenn. But Jenn is also a long distance walker. That sounds like something out of the movie series. But Jenn and her life partner, Louise, walked 16,000 kilometers, which is nearly 10,000 miles. 10,000 miles? Who does that? From Bangkok to Barcelona. I think that just has a great ring to it too, from Bangkok to Barcelona. I that
yep.
that's a great
We had to
one.
start somewhere.
Welcome to Women's Eye, Jenn.
Thanks, Alenka.
And not only did you walk across two continents, which took you and your life partner how long?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. That's a good chunk of life. I can't even imagine doing that. And I've done some pretty crazy stuff myself, but wow. Um, Not just that you did that, you really want to encourage other women to fight those fears and to find that courage to walk the path of discovery and creation. So you and I first met
Mhm.
right soon after we both completed those journeys in 2019 at the Book Passage Travel Writing Conference.
Mhm.
And when I met you, I was pretty proud of myself. I was like, wow, I rode a solo mountain bike from, Lake Tahoe to the tip of Baja. But when I heard what you did is like, oh my God, who does that? That is, that's very impressive. Tell us a
Thanks.
little bit more how that idea came about, but most of all, why?
Well, and I want to just give you a little hat tip because when I heard your story, I was very impressed. And I thought, wow, there are a lot of people out there cycling and doing that kind of journey. But the foot journey, there are fewer of us out there doing that kind of distance. There are people out there doing it, and there are women out there doing it and have done it, and there are couples out there doing it, and there are men out there doing it. But the way it got started in 2013, I received an email from Good Magazine about a guy, Judea Jensen, who was cycling from Oregon to Patagonia.
I read his book.
And he's,
Yeah.
I mean, he's super inspirational, right? So I went to his Instagram and then I went to his website. But what really struck me is that he said in the article that he was a sequel and that his parents, Peter and Barbara Jenkins, had walked across the United States in the 1970s. And there was this National Geographic photo of them walking. And it was, you know, the metal backpack, the metal framed backpacks.
Right.
And they had like a golf umbrella covering themselves from the sun and the typical 70s socks with the stripes on top and boots. And I looked at this picture and I have a wind that whispers to me that kind of comes in and gives me clues about where my next phase of life is going to take me. And this kind of voice came rushing in and said, before you're old and broken, go for a long, long walk like these people.
And
And
not walk around the block.
and go, you know, go do this. And it was initially like the idea was something from Barcelona to Bangkok, like something going out into the world. And without even thinking about it, I quite literally heard it and I was like, oh my God, yes, we can do this. I sent Luis an email and said, before we're old and broken, let's go do something like these people did and walk from Barcelona to Bangkok. And it was right at the moment that he was leaving for lunch. He's in a corporate job, suit and tie. And he looked at my email and his response back was, wow, that's a long, long way. So, you know,
Yeah.
normal people say, are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? And his response was, that's a long, long way. And then the next day he came back with a response, another response or an alternative was, before you're old and broken, before we're old and broken, why don't we walk from Buenos Aires to San Francisco? So it was sort of like, boom, boom. Okay, we're going to go do this.
Wow.
And this was in 2013. And for me, I really thought it was going to happen 6 months later, but Luis is like much more concerned about shutting down the life and saving money and doing all the things that responsible people do. So he's like, we'll wait until 5 years. And I'm like, no, these things happen quicker for me. When I
Mhm.
know it's mine, it happens faster than that. So it happened
Whole life
pretty
takes over
much,
again.
yeah, like life takes over and then it gets on the back burner, right?
Yep.
So for me, these kinds of things, this isn't the first time I've heard something like this. And I knew it would happen sooner. It happened 2.5 years later. We started in 2016 and we finished in 2019. We started on my 44th birthday, walking out of
Oh,
Thailand, walking out of
okay.
Bangkok.
That's a
It,
great birthday present.
it was the hardest birthday of my life. It was like 37 degrees Celsius and which is like more than 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
really, really difficult. But the why, and I gotta tell you, like I struggle with the why of my life pretty often. But I don't know why I do the things I do a lot of times. I know, you know, not to get too woo or spiritual, but I have really good intuition. And the why sometimes for me doesn't matter so much. It was a very clear and strong call in my 40s, and I was ready for it. If the call had come in my 20s or my 30s, I probably would not have been ready, and it probably would not have come as a call in my, you know, the way that it did. It came very crystal clear, and it wasn't impulsive. We waited 2.5 years before we went, so there was a
But
lot
that
of
was more
thought.
because of Louise, right? Because I think you and I have a lot in common. I am a very impulsive, emotional person. When I
Mm-hmm.
get the idea I want to do something,
Yes,
I have to do it. Otherwise, I will not be able to function. And I've been
that's right.
like that since I was a kid. And it sounds like then Louise was the more logical planner. He's the planner of the two.
Planner for sure. He's the planner for sure. And for me, I would have left in 6 months. I had the idea in June. The idea came up in June 2013. I would have been gone by January. I would have, you know, just taken life with me and made it happen. But it was good that we gave ourselves a bit of time because we did need to plan a little bit more. We did need to research visas, and we did need to have some money in the bank, and we did need to close down our apartment. And the motivation, like why it kind of happened so quickly too, is Luis is an only child, right? And his parents are getting older. And there was a concern if we wait too long, they're going to get older and we're not going to be able to go, right? This was becoming also a little bit of a real life thing of how long do we put this off?
And
Because,
we do have to take those things into consideration. I mean,
yeah, we do.
my thought was as well the my cancer and my husband's Parkinson's basically gave me a green light for that window of opportunity, because these are pretty big commitments of time for you guys,
Yes.
obviously a lot longer than mine. But yeah, it's just crazy, when we make those decisions, and then do we actually act on it,
Mhm.
or do we just talk about it? And for me, it was just like my kids were grown up. They didn't need me as much as they did, but I also knew that in my personal situation with my husband's Parkinson's, he's going to start needing me more as we go
Mhm.
down the road. So it's the
Right.
same thing that you're talking about with Louise's parents. We
Mhm.
do have responsibilities to other people. We're not just selfish, selfless persons, um, to take something
No,
on, and that's
no, and
responsibility.
it was something, and it is something we're very glad that we did it when we did it. And luckily, Louise's parents are still in really good shape years later, but it's it is, you can't just always pick up and run and go do these these kinds of big journeys. But there is something to it, if you receive these kinds of calls, this is probably a soul call. Like, and that's, the why, going back to that, like, because it was my time to do it. Because it was my turn and it was mine to do. And Luis, clearly it was his too, right? Like how we came together to do this journey, like we did it as a couple, right? That to me is really striking, that, and we're still a couple, right? Like we
And you're still
survived.
you're still together. But if
We're
I
still
remember
together.
from your walk,
Mm-hmm.
from your book, and from your movie that you guys did, and you can tell us more about that in a little bit. You did take a little break from each other for a
We
while, did
did. We
yeah.
did. Yeah,
And
because it's hard. It's hard being
it's
with each other
difficult
for
to be,
a
I
time.
think it's personally, I think it's a lot more difficult to walk as a couple. I was very glad that I was by myself, as scary as it was,
Mm-hmm.
but I needed to do it alone. I don't think my husband and I would have survived doing something like that together, because when you're alone, you have nobody to complain to. You're
Right.
doing it, and you're responsible for
That's
whatever you've done, just for yourself. But you and I have a lot of things in common that way as far as personality, but we're
Mhm.
also both immigrants. Basically, we
Mhm.
self-exiled, and
Yep.
found a new home. When we were on our journeys or pilgrimages, whatever you want to call them, adventures, it's not just an adventure, it's really
No.
is like a pilgrimage in a way,
It's like
right?
an odyssey, quite honestly.
Honestly, that's a great word
Yeah.
too. We basically carried our home on, I myself on my bike,
Mhm.
and you carried it on your back. What does home mean to you? Um, and is it different now? Do you have a different relationship to what home in a sense is?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Yeah. Not a lot of people have asked that about the home aspect of the journey, right? But to get into that, when I was younger, like in my 30s, I wrote an essay about having four homes. And
Even back then.
yeah, way back then, because I grew up in New Jersey and then I moved to California. I lived in California for a long time, or a bunch of years. And California was my young adult, like that's home for me because I came of age as an adult sort of in California. So there was the home where my family lived in New Jersey, where I grew up, the home that California became to me. And then I developed this connection to my father's family's land, which is Croatia. And that felt like home. That felt like an
And that we have
ancestral
in common
home.
as well. You and
I
I,
know
very similar background.
similar
That
backgrounds on that. And although you lived it firsthand and I lived it more generationally through the stories, but when I went there, I felt a very strong connection to that land. And then I had already moved myself to Barcelona, right? So I had this home with this love that I was building. I had an ancestral home, a home that I grew up in, and a place that felt like home. So carrying my home on my back really had to shift my idea of home. And I think the idea of home now is it's the safety I feel inside myself, right? Yes, it's nice to have a cozy bed. That is a really nice thing every day, to have a bed to sleep in and to turn on the lights and to have potable water. Like these are all really wonderful things. And the cozy corner of our lives where we nest together, or where we rest and kind of have this inward life, right? In this inward facing life. But we had to make home under a bridge. We had to make home in a forest. We had to make home in strangers' homes. And I
let's
think,
talk a little bit about
yeah,
strangers that you met. And we always talk about when we do long distance travel,
mhm,
talk about the kindness of strangers and the
yeah,
love beyond the fear. Once we conquered that fear of making that first step, taking us onto that journey, and then we say, okay, we're gonna go, and whatever happens, happens. Tell us a little bit about, just maybe a few experiences of that love and kindness in the world, which we all need so desperately in today's environment. And can we give people hope, really, that that love and kindness does exist?
I think we must. I think we must give that hope now more than ever. But
Yeah.
the kindness of strangers, we decided very early on that we would not survive this trip if we only had to depend on ourselves. We knew we would have to ask for help, and we had to learn how to do that. That was not a natural thing for us. And we began to make a joke out of it. Like we had this little thing, we put up our little radar that says we're open to invitation, right? Like we're open to invitation. And that became a lot of what the walk was about. We're open to invitation and we are willing to stop and explore the invitation. And
Mhm.
that ultimately led to a lot of nights camping in somebody's home or being in somebody's home, right? And dinner and tea and playing with their kids and talking to their elders and gathering and just sharing life. And we didn't always have language, but it's amazing the human ability to communicate
Without a language.
without a common language
Yeah.
is amazing. It's really quite amazing. And it was such an important part of our journey that our documentary that's also out in the world now is really about that. It's about the kindness of strangers that we found along the way. And
What is the name of your documentary?
the
Tell us.
documentary is the same as the book as the walk, Bangkok, Barcelona on foot. That's the same. Like,
Mhm.
what is the name of it? Wait, hold on. The documentary is Bangkok, Barcelona on foot. And we're in the process of making it available on demand. That's probably going to be a 2025 goal. But we've been taking it on film festivals and presentations and just sharing that idea that in places you least expect it, somebody will open their heart and their lives to you. And it's our job to know when that invitation comes and how we respond to it, right? Because it's hard always to say yes to every invitation,
Mm.
but there is something about the way people communicate with their bodies and with their eyes and their intention. You can hear it, you can hear their heart intention if you listen closely. But
I
it's
think
really,
that that trust is that unspoken language, the body language, and I encounter that,
Mhm.
on my ride as well, is fear is real and you can
Yep.
feel it. Uh, but when you are out there and you meet people, I think, if you project that trust to people and um, you will feel it, right? You will feel it back. And there's one, I mean, it's such a long journey that you guys were on, so it's really difficult to say what was the most important moment but is there something that stands out for you more than other?
Yeah, I will say it over and over and over again that the Iranians were the most generous people we've ever met.
Isn't that amazing?
And they get such a bad rap because
And
of
the
political reasons,
misconceptions that we have because of politics in the world
politics,
and what
and
we
the
are
way the
told.
news is slanted and what we're told about them. We have on our blog, bangkokbarcelonaonfoot.com, we have an entry of who does this, and it's pages and pages and pages of kindness that the Iranians
Mm.
bestowed on us. Do you want some tea? Come in, have some ice cream. People stopping on the side of the road and inviting us to a picnic, arguing, arguing for who's going to get to stay, who are we going to get to stay with, and then calling each other to organize how we're going to show up in their city and stay with this family for a couple days and this family for a couple days. And we had met some cyclists doing the old Silk Road cycling trips, and they were like, oh, wait till you get to Iran, wait till you get to Iran, like just wait. And we had gone there with the anticipation that this was going to be a pinnacle part of the trip, and it's not halfway, it didn't come halfway in time, but it came, if you look at the map that we crossed from Bangkok all the way over to Barcelona, it does come sort of geographically in the middle. And there was a turning point there of let's keep bringing this kindness forward. And Luis and I have felt that very deeply. Like we were convoys, I think, for the kindness that we received and bringing that forward. So it's that sort of idea of what you project, you mirror back, right? And we
Mhm.
were bringing that into people's homes, and we were really curious about their lives and always respectful, and really learning really quickly how to read the room of a
Mhm.
place. Like in Iran, if women were more comfortable staying covered, I would stay covered for a little while and then ask if I could do that. If there were other women who in their house took everything off and they were in short sleeves shirts, like I did the same, right? So it is a matter
You
of
have to respect other cultures.
that's it. And you don't
Yeah,
come in, I never walked in with this idea that, oh, I'm superior to you. I'm like, oh, I'm in your place. What's the rules
absolutely.
here? How does this work? And how can we just be together and be human together? Right. I think that was a huge thing. But there, to get comfortable doing that takes some courage, right? And courage as an action. I think of courage as like the action more than a noun or a adjective, to be courageous. And that's what I talk about in the book, is a little bit more of the how do you walk into your own heart of courage, even if there's fear and even if there's these other emotions that kind of come in, and how do you become present to that so that you're just this kind of human walking on the planet with billions of other people, and appreciate all of that. The hard moments and the easy moments and the moments when somebody gives you ice cream and the moments when you have a problem with the visa. Like how do you, or a misunderstanding, we certainly had some of those. or, you know, between us interrelationally, like how we could manage each other's discomfort, right? It really, there's something more than courage there, and I'm not quite sure what I'm not quite sure what it is, but it's a little bit more than courage. It's
Yeah, and it's how we are in the
yeah,
world, how we, perceive things. And we all know, just like in life, on a journey particularly of that length, nothing lasts forever, right? Not
no.
thirst, not hunger, not fear, not discomfort and sore toes and blisters. All that is at some point in the past. But I think to me, and this is where a lot of the times we fail on an everyday basis, is that joy and happiness are so fleeting. We have this idea that, well, when I do this and that, then I'll be happy. And if I do this and that, I will find joy in our life. But we fail to notice those little moments in time where this is joy. This is as good as it gets. And if you miss that, it's gone. It's that
Right.
moment that we say, and I, on my bike journey, I had this feeling of euphoria where I was literally screaming on the top of my lungs. I've never felt that alive before. And if I miss that moment, what is it then? Then you're really missing something in life. It's just sometimes even just the way the light hits the tree that you pass, right? It's like if you
Mhm.
miss that little moment, that could be that good moment of the day because everything else was miserable because you're tired, you're dirty, you're hot, you're cold,
Sweaty.
you're
Yeah.
sweaty, which actually one of the things that was interesting too, and I'm sure you guys dealt with it, you kind of get weathered looking, right? When
Oh,
you're on
we
a long journey
were
like that.
weathered.
But I was by myself and I could care less what I looked like. I didn't
Yeah.
have a mirror. I didn't have to even brush. I didn't even have a comb for the first few weeks of my journey. Who cares? Nobody cares what you look like. We are so much more concerned about our own appearance, right? And how other people see us that we fail to see those internal changes that are going on. But in your book, The Journey from Fear to Courage is in part memoir and about that journey that you guys were on, but it's really a personal development book that
Mhm.
you created even worksheets for your readers. Tell us
Did.
a little bit more and show us your book
Sure. I'll
so
show
that
it.
people can
The
see
In
the
Between, Journeying from Fear to Courage. And the title, The In Between, is something I talked about with my publisher at Red Thread. And uh, you're right, it is mixed genre. It is memoir, and it is also worksheets. And what it's becoming for me is my own worksheet. When I started to write this, just kind of going back to that impermanence of all these things, right? And my joy came from achieving things. Every like ambitious thing I set out for, I climbed that personal Everest and grabbed that laurel and put it in my back pocket and then went off to the next mountain. And there was a lot of joy in that in my earlier part of life. But it's also with the In Between Explorers is this idea that I didn't know that I was experiencing because I spent a lot of my life kind of holding a shield up and then just kind of battering through life like with the sword of courage and just kind of there was no time to be afraid. It was like put your big girl panties on and get out there and do your thing, get your next laurel, get your next achievement, keep going, don't be afraid. And there's no time for crying. There's that that Tom Hanks line, there's no crying in baseball. From that movie, like that was my life. There's no time for crying. So the In Between um, is this space that's really between fear and courage that I started to understand after the walk,
Mm.
because in my 40s, I felt the most courageous I had ever felt in my entire life. That decade of my 40s and those years walking, I felt the most courageous that I've ever felt. So now that I'm almost 53, but coming out of the walk and going through the pandemic and really kind of understanding, no, there's actually an emotional journey that I went through every time. And I just masked a lot of my fear to keep going, right? To push the river, to climb the mountain, to get the next achievement, to look tough, to be perceived as tough. And then what I started to notice is, oh yeah, there was fear, some internal, external input that was kind of there in my space. And then there was anger, and then there was disappointment, and then there was frustration, and then there was hope. And then there was a willingness to try something new and a curiosity about how it would turn out. And then there was the holy moly, I am going to actually do this thing. And then there was sort of courage, right? And that all happened in a very short amount of time. But as I unpeeled sort of this journey that I've been on for 50 years without knowing I was on this journey, that tilted a little bit. And I can see now that it's like a spiral journey, right? There's fear, and then you kind of walk into this heart of courage, and then you're in courage. And this is really the worksheets in here. I created them sort of really like channeled a lot of those things like, yes, this is the perfect question. And now I'm going back and going, oh my God, how would I answer that question myself? I don't even know. So it's become my workbook as well.
But this is how you also try to help other women with your
That's right.
workshops, and,
That's
to
right.
face that courage, accept it, and then kind of move on. And but for you and I feel, unfortunately, not everybody can have that kind of radical departure from life.
Yeah.
We were lucky that we were able to create that time. And in it's really having that message, just do it, right? Before that journey that we are on through life is over, because it is going to be over. And,
Yes.
it's what are we going to do, and what does this life really mean to us, that we share in the world? So we kind of have to do the closing here because we're running out of time. Thank you
Mhm.
so much, Jen. Is there any future walks in your life, do you think, or was
Oh,
this and
I'm
done?
still walking. I mean, we still go for long walks. And just in closing like that, that's something really important is, it's not just the bucket list. It's not just checking things off a list to say you've done them. It's really coming into your life with this idea that you're creating your own experience, and how do you want to show up for that? And that's what we're doing now. We go for long walks every weekend, 20 kilometers or so, and just enjoy the sound of the birds or the smell of the forest or the sun shining through the trees, right? Those are incredibly meaningful to me, and I hope they are
I
to
think
you.
it
And
brings us closer to nature. And when we are moving through nature at our own pace and slow
mhm.
down, then we can understand more about ourselves. And you can learn more about Jen by just going to our website, thewomenseye.com. On the website, you'll also find books like 20 Women Changemakers, that I have here, and storytellers, at changemakersbook.com, and womenstorytellersbook.com. Don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our newsletter and YouTube channel. Again, thank you so much, Jan. You and I could talk forever, and I know we will continue our conversations because we meet each other at the Book Passage Travel Writing Conference. which has, I think, changed both of our lives because we kind of got the green light to write the books, right? Um, I'm actually one of the big adventures that I had this summer is that I recorded my book, She Rides Chasing Dreams. And to me, that was a whole different experience and very emotional. But I am Alenka Vrecek. Remember, it's the world as we see it. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Alenka.